He literally said, I'm going to be mean to you because the opposite of love is not anger. The opposite of love is fear. I had to leave my technological cave and come out and manage people. If you sense fear in something, that probably means it's something where you can learn.
For so long, I think in our schooling and college and even at the beginnings of our work, there is almost an expectation that leaders should know everything and they got promoted because they know everything. That's not going to work these days, is it, around leadership?
No, it's not, because now leadership is... Hi, my name is Trey Smith, and you're listening to Tech Legacies podcast.
You're not going to want to miss these important leadership lessons to help you deal and tackle the latest IT and big business problems of today. This episode, I am joined by Trey Smith, CIO of multiple different companies in different industries, and we're going to tackle all those leadership problems and issues and lessons. So thank you for joining me, Trey.
Thank you for having me, Fanny. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's an honor to get to talk to you about these things that we're both passionate about.
Yes, for sure, for sure. But let's kind of start at the beginning, like being in tech. What kind of sparked your interest in tech, and what got you interested?
Yeah, so nerd alert.
Love it.
My first computer was a piece of paper. So I went to Radio Shack, remember those days?
Yes.
And I bought a book on programming, but I didn't have enough money to buy a computer at the time. So I learned programming from the book and wrote the code on paper, then executed it in my head. And then I got a paper route and earned enough money to buy my first computer, which was an Atari 800, which had a whopping 48 kilobytes of memory and ran at a blistering 1 megahertz. So computers now are literally like millions and hundreds of millions of times faster and more powerful than that machine was. And then in addition to the software and computing side, I was burning holes in my mom's carpet with soldering iron, building robots and all kinds of crazy stuff, learning about electricity and all those kinds of things. So lifelong nerd.
You're like Inspector Gadget.
Yeah, that would be a decent description.
Tinkering with all
Tinkering,
that stuff.
yes, and the kids and my wife are all very tolerant of my impetus towards those kinds of experiments and things, and sometimes they even help out. So
what was your first job then?
My first job was writing a system called Broadcast Sales Manager. I was a teenager. And it was kind of like an early Salesforce. So that radio broadcast sales management staff could track call times for their salespeople. And then after that, I went into telecommunications and invented this thing called the Texas Cash Card, which was an online pre-internet interactive voice response coupon system. And then after—
Hold on, interactive voice response coupon system.
Yes, so that you could go get discounts at local retailers by calling a phone number and entering a 5-digit code, and then it would give you a coupon back via voice.
Okay.
And the rest was just a trajectory in technology. But I was lucky enough to be able to work in both software and hardware and integrations and APIs before they were called APIs and things like that. Yeah.
So help me understand then, like, how you kind of moved up the IT corporate ladder to get to CIO today, or maybe some stepping stones along that way.
Yeah, some stepping stones. So, I kind of always had a love for the people side of the equation as well as the technology side. And to keep growing on the people side meant I had to come out of my individual contributor cave and work with people. And that's where I found really my passion lies.
Yeah.
I think I just hit my microphone.
All good.
Or maybe it was a heartbeat. To restate that, to go after the leadership portion of myself and enhance that and scratch that itch, I had to leave my technological cave and come out and manage people. So that's what I did. and there was a series of escalating promotions that I expected to be firings every time. So acquisitions and divestitures, and every time I just kept getting promoted.
That's awesome.
And so that's how I ended up in a CIO seat.
But how did you get that, I guess, self-awareness to know to get out of individual contributor mode and to like a leadership or management kind of mode?
Well, I wish I could say that I had the transcendent awareness in my 20s, but I didn't.
Okay.
It was really just, it was a necessity. So there were big projects that needed to get done, and somebody needed to lead them, and I put my hand up every chance I got, and I found out that I liked that kind of helping people, reach their potentials, which ultimately fulfilled the business need.
It always fascinates me how, especially for technologists, where we concentrate so much on knowing the method, knowing the process, knowing the how. But when you step into a new project or new role that's bigger, you don't necessarily know the how. So what gives you the impetus to take that leap?
I think it's leaning into fear, quite frankly. It's, if you sense fear in something, that probably means it's something where you can learn. It's an opportunity to grow. And so leaning into that fear and distancing yourself from that fear and being able to look at it and say, that's not so scary after all. And I've got a big team of people that I love and who love me. We can figure this out together. It's also admitting when you don't know something. I had a compliment that I wasn't supposed to hear after a door closed, and it was right after a big question had been asked about an event, and I said, I don't know, but I'll go find out. I'll be right back to you as soon as I learn what's going on. And the door closed behind me, and I was walking as fast as I could down this hall, and I heard somebody say, it is so refreshing to hear a technologist say, I don't know. That stuck with me.
And it's honest too, right?
It's honest and it's helpful. If you set the table up front, it's like, okay, if this project consists of 750 things that we have to do, and okay, we know about 700 of them. Let's admit we don't know 50 of them, but we'll work together to figure those things out. And heck, at the end of it, we may still not know some of those things, and we will have to pivot and turn and weave our way to an answer.
Well, for so long, I think in our schooling and college and even at the beginnings of our work, there is almost an expectation that leaders should know everything, and they got promoted because they know everything. That's not going to work these days, is it, around leadership?
No, it's not, because now leadership is transitioning from intellectual intelligence to emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is what's going to allow us to truly lead people, especially people that are in newer generations, because their thinking is different. And I think it's more aware. It's certainly more aware than I was at the age that I'm seeing people become like hyper aware, hyper focused of what their boundaries are and what they think success consists of. It's very different than what I was taught as a kid, with kind of a Cold War ethic, put your nose to the grindstone and just do it. Just put in those hours no matter what. And it's important for everybody to know that hard work, it's hard. It's called work for a reason, but there's a balance. And if you're working with and for a leader who leads with empathy, who leads from the heart, who's conscious about what they're doing and how other people feel about it is important to that leader, then they're willing to go above and beyond what that paycheck may motivate them to do, or what position-based power may, make them feel compelled to do. If they really feel that they're part of a team and that they're being heard, truly listened to, and that their opinion counts, and that as a leader, you're thoughtful about what decisions you're making and inclusive on those decisions when it's appropriate, then people are going to really excel, and you're going to see them go above what even they think they're capable of.
And they'll go the extra mile too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
If you had to like kind of boil it down to, let's say, 3 leadership traits that you think we need as leaders today to solve the latest business and IT problems, and with the introduction of AI and all that, what would those 3 leadership qualities be?
yeah, no pressure. Thanks, Fanny.
You're welcome.
So I think ethics. There's a phrase, I think maybe Will Rogers said it, that's you can't fool an honest person. And what that means to me is that if I lead with ethics every single time, then nobody's going to try and pull a fast one, because they know that they don't have an ability to cheat with me, right? And that aura, that energy of ethics is pervasive. And I've talked to so many people in this industry that have told me, Trey, I've been offered, things that were not completely honest in order to swing a decision or a contract one way or the other. That has literally never happened with me. And I asked a very close business associate, like, that's never happened with me. He says, well, Trey, within 30 seconds, everybody can tell that you're ethical. And it's not something that I approach from a conscious aspect. I don't have to work at that, and neither should anybody. It should be who we are. So I'd say ethics is number 1 for me. Compassion, I would put number 2. Everybody goes through tough times in life. Everybody has things that are happening outside the workplace that we may not know about. Everybody has a holistic life that exists at work, outside of work, with family, with health issues, with family, all those things, right? And if you sense somebody is not performing at what their capabilities are, or what you believe they're capable of, maybe something's going on with them. Yeah. Be compassionate. And listen, as technologists and as hard-headed engineers in IT, we tend to beat people to death with the facts.
Yeah.
It's okay to be right, but bring compassion along with that truth. And that can soften the blow, right? Or it can add a different dimension to the communication. Compassion plus truth will lead everybody in the right direction. How do we stay ahead of AI? Those 2 things are important, because AI doesn't have ethics and doesn't have compassion. The 3rd thing is fearlessness. By fearlessness, I don't mean the absence of fear. We all have fear present in our life, whether it's anxiety or other sources of fear. Yeah. It can be scary going into our
Being
board.
not enough.
It could be that.
Or
it could
feeling
be
not enough.
Feeling like you're not enough, feeling like, oh, wow, am I meeting my boss's expectations? Or being afraid to present something to your team. There's all kinds of sources for fear. What I mean by fearlessness in this context is, don't let it stop you as a leader. Confront that fear and move through it with compassion, with ethics, with honesty, with transparency. Be genuine and move through that fear. Every time that you move through fear, you expand your comfort zone. You won't be afraid of that next time because you already beat it. So your circle gets wider and wider and wider and wider. And pretty soon, there's darn near nothing that can make you afraid. Maybe that saber-toothed tiger that our hindbrain is still afraid of. But it's those 3 things, I think, that differentiate us as leaders and differentiate us from AI.
What does confronting fear look like to you? Do you have a story or example around that? Yeah,
I do. So it was my first trip to big private equity headquarters in Manhattan. And I get there and I go up and I'm meeting with, people whose shoes cost more than what I make in a month. It's
Yep.
an intimidating crowd, right?
Yeah.
And so I was already concerned about the message I needed to deliver, because this was a building credibility meeting, because I had discovered a bunch of things that needed to be fixed across several different companies. Expensive things and things that nobody had told them about in the past. And so I prepared myself. I talked with my wife, talked with my colleagues that I could, confide in. And I got confronted with somebody who said, Trey, I had a really bad morning. I'm going to be mean to you.
At least they gave a warning.
He literally said, I'm going to be mean to you, and I'm going to tell you why I'm going to be mean to you. And he listed about 12 reasons why he was going to be mean to me. And then he was mean.
Logically mean or irrationally mean?
Just plain mean. Just grouchy, mean, and nasty. And at the end of his meanness, he said, why should we believe you? Give us one good reason why we should believe you. We've been lied to before. Why should we believe you now? I said, you know what? I hear you. I hear your fear. That's what's coming across.
Wow.
Because the opposite of love is not anger. The opposite of love is fear. I hear your fear. Tell you what, if you don't believe me, how about I take this plan that I just presented to you and take it to a completely independent third party? We'll have them evaluate it and come back with a report. I'll include you in all the communications. They're not going to agree with everything that I've suggested, but let's see what they say. And I did. And so let's say there was 20 things that I was recommending. 18 of them were green check marks. One of them was a red X, and one of them was like a and that won the credibility. And from then on, I didn't receive that reception again.
Oh, you built trust?
Built trust. I could have reacted poorly in that situation. I could have reacted to him being mean to me, and that would have burned trust. Instead, I earned trust. So that was a fear episode for me.
And even, I always remember this one phrase, hurt people hurt people. And that always sticks with me, because being in marketing and social media and all that, now and then you get negative comments and from people that may not even know you, and but it's because they're coming from something. And then it just kind of, the baggage then comes through towards me or towards you or whatever it is, right?
Right.
But it's their baggage,
or
fear in this case.
His baggage was enumerated to me. He listed each one of his bags and the contents of those bags, which
I like the honesty.
I didn't particularly appreciate the honesty in the moment.
Yes.
It was pretty scary for this Texas guy to show up in New York with these British and Australian investment bankers and get treated that way. But
that's what CIOs have to face, right? I want to pause real quick here and give a special shout out to one of our sponsors, CG Infinity. I've worked with them for several years now, and I can truly say that they have one of the best workplace cultures that I've ever experienced. And they specialize in a variety of industries, especially energy, utilities, and financial services. And they serve them through their Salesforce, cloud, as well as customer experience services. So thank you, CG Infinity, and I hope you'll support them as they have supported us here at the podcast. Because you're presenting solutions, tools, platforms with big budgets to get approved by CEOs, board of directors, all those kind of things, and you're kind of being judged as you present these things. Any advice or lessons from having to do that often, and pointers for our audience?
For sure. So any tech jargon, get rid of it. Nobody wants to hear that. It doesn't make any sense. It's too domain specific. They're expecting you to be the expert on that. You're not trying to make them the expert on that domain, right? Simplify it. What are the business outcomes that you're going to achieve? Well, okay, let's say that you need to replace every firewall across an entire enterprise. They don't care what a firewall is. You have to put it in terms that they can understand, which is we are unsafe at the edge. We need to make that safer so that we can all do business in a safe manner. It's going to cost this much and it's going to take this much time, but afterward we're going to move the needle from here to here. There's a million examples of that projects that CIOs are going to propose, but they should all come back to how does it benefit the business, right? Fixing the plumbing in IT, that's just part of the job. You shouldn't have to explain that at the detail level. You should just explain what the business outcome is. And the first trigger that you're making a mistake should be if you see one word of tech jargon, then you're about to make a mistake.
How do you even get to that business knowledge? Because a lot of times, CIOs, IT senior leadership, they might have come from a programming background or a development background or an engineering background. So does one get an MBA, or what do you suggest people do to gain that business acumen and knowledge?
That's a good question.
As an IT leader.
Sure. So I'm lucky. My parents were both serial entrepreneurs. So from age 5 forward, I was involved at the ground floor of building and growing businesses, including running the whole punch machine and making marketing materials and stuffing envelopes to send out. And so I had a lucky childhood in that I saw what was involved in making business run, how to operate, how to grow businesses. And for somebody that's moving from an engineering background or a software background or whatever technical background, I'd say really ask lots of questions. And sometimes they may not have to be specific questions, right? But you need to start to understand from a 100,000-foot view, what is this business? Why does it exist? And then start zooming down. And when you get to the atomic level, stop, pull back up, and now you know more than enough to be effective in IT leadership. Another one is don't be afraid to ask, what can I do to be a leader in this organization? And that, I was at Bank of America Securities. I was an individual contributor at that time, and I was meeting with my boss's 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 boss and his boss. And I said, listen, I noticed there's A programmers here and B programmers here. How do I make sure that you guys see me as an A programmer? Second question, how do I become more important around here? Because I really like it and it's really challenging me. And that set them back. They were like, what do you mean, how can you be more important here? And the other guy was like, what do you mean A and B programmers? But the point came across. I wanted to advance, and within a month of asking those questions, I was given a department, and before too long, I was in charge of electronic trading for that division.
I love that question. I've never heard it worded that way. How can I be more important here? Because I really do like it here, and what can I do? That's it's so straightforward, and yet, I don't think people think to ever ask that.
Well, I didn't think about asking it until I was in there. But that was really the crux of it. I was like, I wanted to help lead in that organization. And as it turns out, most places, most companies want leaders who are hungry to lead. And so ask for it. But also show that you have inquisitiveness and you've done your homework and you've learned as much as you can about the business so that it's worth them taking a chance on you in a leadership role.
Right. How have you seen the CIO role evolve over the last decade? Because what worked 10 years ago cannot work now, right?
Yeah, so 10 years ago, CIOs were all about the data center, the computers, the network, the stuff, and how it connects together, right? That's table stakes now, right? Most of us have moved to the cloud, or at least moved to the cloud where it's appropriate. So the data center side of it is less important. It's assumed that we can keep the computers running. It's assumed that we'll have uptime that's sufficient to meet the business's needs. It's assumed that we'll be secure in the way that we do things. If you're at the C level, all those things should be there. So
That's the base point.
That's the base point. If you can't do that, then you're probably not in the right job. What's changed is now CIOs have a seat at the table with the other C-level executives. General counsel, CFO, CHRO, CTO, which CIO and CTO are two different roles in some companies, CFO, and you're each domain experts, right? I'm not an attorney. So I expect the general counsel to be able to give us advice on their expertise, right? I expect the CFO to be able to say, that's not a great financial decision, Trey, but they're expecting me to weigh in on, here's how I think technology could help, right? But it's more than that. All of us should be working together as a team, cross-functionally, and offering opinions on areas that are outside of our defined domain. That's where creativity and true intelligence comes into play, is the ability to pivot and think outside of your own box and offer solutions that might be counterintuitive to other people. And also be willing to admit, listen, this may be a crazy idea, but I'd like to present this. I'd like to think about this, right? I think that's the big change, is that CIOs are now expected to be business leaders that have domain expertise in IT.
Yeah. Well, it's the term that every business is a technology business now. Right?
It's true.
There's not one area of business that's not affected by technology.
No, I'm working with a company right now that feeds the world. They're supplying agricultural potassium to the world, without which we would all starve. So arguably, this is a supply chain company that's delivering a commodity. It's kind of a data company too. It's a data company because the data represents the real world commodities and the transmission and transportation of that commodity. Without the data, it's really tough to get the job done. Conversely, if the data is there in a way that's accessible to everybody in the company, everybody becomes more efficient. You can drive more value. You can cut cost out of the equation, which helps everybody. And you can enable people to free themselves from the drudgery of copy and paste and apply that creativity and that amazing work ethic and intelligence towards pushing the boundaries of the business and enlarging the envelope of success for that business.
Better planning, better predictions, that too, right?
Yep.
So as you kind of navigate solving these problems of IT across organizations, it also comes down to people, right? The teams, the resources, the people that you work with that make things happen. I remember our conversation about like patterns and things you notice of like different personalities that hinder a company's growth and then personalities that help a company grow. Can you kind of boil that down for us or give us some highlights of that?
Sure. So I think that from my standpoint as a person inside a company and a leader inside a company, I want to be a sheepdog.
What do you mean?
Well, a sheepdog defends the sheep from the wolves. So there will be wolves in any given environment. Wolves always have to convert more sheep into wolves to survive. A wolf can't beat a sheepdog though. And sometimes all the sheep need is a sheepdog to protect them, right? So what happens is if you lead fearlessly as a sheepdog, the wolves will start leaving on their own. Now you may have to help a few of them out the door, but everybody's looking to you, and what you can actually do then is convert a few sheep into more sheepdogs. So now you've got a squadron of sheepdogs to help you defend the sheep. And once that happens and you've got this team in place, there's nothing that can stop you. And you've eliminated the bad personalities, right? The toxic
ones.
people, yep. And once that toxicity is gone, then the creativity can really flow because people aren't afraid to speak their minds. They're not afraid to make mistakes. They're not afraid to try things. They're not afraid anymore because they know you're there to protect them, right? As the sheepdog, you're there to protect them and allow them to do their jobs and allow them to be the person that they are and allow them to reach their full potential without worrying about being predated upon by wolves.
It's almost like the sheepdog reminds me of the concept of the servant leader, right? That they're only successful if their team, or in this case, the other sheep, are also successful. And then serving them and supporting them as well.
Yeah, I mean, our job as leaders is to make our people successful and then get out of their way, right? Set the conditions such that they can be successful without being afraid and get out of their way. And then you'll see some amazing stuff happen.
I have a question for you, because I've faced it in my own career around toxic people that are high performers. So from a standpoint of, they might be the top sales leader. So they're producing results, bringing in sales to the organization, but they're toxic. How do you deal with a situation like that?
Okay, so they're top performer, they're bringing in sales, but at what cost? Who are they driving away? What poison are they spreading inside the organization? I would say that it's never worth keeping a toxic personality present. Toxicity is poison. If you've got a toxic person in an organization, that poison will spread and it's going to hurt people. Everybody can feel it, and it does not matter how much money that person is bringing into the company or whatever their measure of high performance is. It's not worth it. We want to build organizations that trust each other, that are resilient, that believe in leadership. How can somebody at an individual contributor level or any level trust a leader that allows a toxic person to stay? Because it's harming them at some level, right? Even if they're in a different department, it's our job to detect and get rid of toxicity in our organizations, because it will kill the organization.
Even slow poison kills.
That's right. Yeah, and that may be the worst, because you may not even realize it until you're dead, right? Which is a terrible, scary metaphor, but it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, a corporation, what is corpus? That's body,
Yeah.
right? Corporation. It's a body. It's a body that's made up of people. And we have to protect those people. And protecting those people includes getting rid of poison and toxicity.
So Trey, this show is Tech Legacies. What do you want your legacy to be?
That's a good one. So I definitely think of myself as a father and a husband when you ask me that question. And I want my legacy to be one that says, Trey was a good guy. He always did the right thing for his people. He was always honest. He never did anything evil. He tried for good. He made mistakes sometime, but he owned those mistakes.
Yeah.
But he was a good person.
I love that. So we have a tradition here on the show where these are a series of questions that were asked on Diary of a CEO podcast.
Okay.
And these are all questions that CEOs or famous people or business leaders have asked each other and written for each other.
Okay.
So I want you to randomly select a card
All right.
and see where we go with it.
Your grip is strong.
Gripping.
Good Lord. Okay. How much do you accept yourself, have positive thoughts about yourself, have healed your wounds, and fully love who you are authentically? Woo!
Who wrote that question?
Lewis Howes?
Oh,
H-O-W-E-S.
yes,
I don't
he's
know.
a former NFL player.
Oh, okay. Well, that's why I don't know. I'm not a sport ball person. So, how much do I accept myself, have positive thoughts about myself, have healed my wounds, and fully love who I am authentically? Wow, that's a big question, Fanny.
That is a big question.
Yeah, so there are some things that I do kind of mechanically that include this. So I'm
Sure.
into mindful meditation,
Okay.
and some of those.
Tell
so
us
I
about
get
that.
well. All right, this is going to sound counterintuitive, but as a technologist, of course, I use an app to meditate.
Love
So
it.
now it's legit. It was created by a Tibetan monk, but
What's the name of the app?
it's called Headspace.
Oh, yes.
It's
Yeah.
really, really cool.
Yes.
And so it kind of provides a little bit of structure for my meditation,
Yeah.
which is helpful to me. So we hit some of these things
Love it.
kind of mechanically through that. And then I've got a group of friends and colleagues that are amazing people that reinforce positivity. And I've recently connected with spiritualism, which is brand new for me. So I've got that. And then I think
Love it.
I've got very powerful women in my life. My wife, Christina, is an amazing, authentic, emotionally intelligent woman who makes sure that I stay on the straight and narrow and that I think good thoughts of myself. And I've got other people in my life to help with that role, including you now. So
Thank you.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, on that note, you can see, folks, that for these leaders of today, that combination of emotional intelligence as well as the traditional intelligence is really key. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Trey, for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you to the audience. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Tech Legacies, and also to leave us feedback and subscribe to our podcasts on Apple as well as Spotify, Tech Legacies. We'll see you next time, everyone. At Tech Legacies, we're all about helping technology professionals grow and succeed in their careers by sharing the advice of top technology executives. If you're looking to take your career to the next level and become a technology executive yourself, we have an exciting program to tell you about. It's called the Tech CXO Excellence Program by Tech CXO Launchpad, and they are our partners. They're offering an immersive, multimodal program developed and taught by current and former CIOs and CTOs who are passionate about building the next generation of C-suite technology executives. And you'll experience a full immersion into the C-suite world and also get to collaborate, network, and experience capstone-style projects with other professionals. And this is all while benefiting from face-to-face interactions in person with industry guest speakers. It is exclusively for a new level of C-suite executives and C-level direct reports and second directs who are earmarked for succession planning and career growth. To join their waitlist, register your interests at www.techcxolaunchpad.com. That's techcxolaunchpad.com. This program has everything you need to take your career to the next level.